Domestic violence, another topic that's really difficult to talk about. My last show, I talked with Allison Kelly at Liberty House about child abuse and neglect. And we do have a bit of a theme going here, but it's an issue also that is really important to talk about. It's a major part of too many people's lives, and I'm so pleased to have a special guest with me today, Jayne Downing. I'll introduce her in just a moment. I'm Patty Milne, and welcome to People, Places, and Politics. Again, this issue of domestic violence, it affects far too many families, particularly and unfortunately children again. And also, I think there's still this myth that it's a personal issue between the couple. And even, unfortunately, I think from my involvement with some of these issues, the victim did something wrong and is responsible for these events in her life, sometimes in his life. We'll talk about that as well. Again, I'm really, really happy to have you join me, Jayne Downing, who is the Executive Director of Center for Hope and Safety, formerly the Mid-Valley Women's Crisis Center. And a little bit of background on Jayne. Jayne's been working with victims and survivors of domestic and sexual violence for more than 23 years. She began with the Mid-Valley Women's Crisis Service in 1997. Since then, Jayne has trained more than 30,000 people on domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and human trafficking. And that's something I hope we'll have a minute to talk about as well, but here and all around the Northwest. Jayne has also served on a number of local and statewide task forces and committees, including the Governor's Task Force on Domestic Violence and a Task Force on Elder Abuse, the Attorney General's Sexual Assault Task Force and Batterer Intervention Standards Advisory Board, and many, many more. And it was my great pleasure to really get to know Jayne and more about what happens at the Center for Hope and Safety. As a county commissioner, I chaired the Public Safety Coordinating Council, and Jayne, a fabulous, wonderful, valuable member on that board. So, Jayne, we have lots to talk about in a short period of time. Maybe I could start with, you have a name change, a new location, and probably expanded programs. And when I understand that you have 20,000 monthly contacts. Well, from your website, on the website, contacts on the website, 20,811 office contacts. Is the problem growing? What's happening here?
Yeah, Patty, thank you for having me today. I wouldn't say the problem is growing. I think what is a reality is more people are willing to come forward and talk about it.
Actually,
More awareness. And we're doing a better job of doing outreach to the whole county. Unfortunately, there have been a great many domestic violence homicides in the state of Oregon, and that awareness also, the coverage that it brings on television, all of that really encourages, unfortunately with the murders, but with the outreach and the attention that's paid to the issue, it encourages people to say, maybe I can talk to someone about this. And so we're seeing a huge increase in the number of people who are coming to us. And we've actually doubled in our numbers from just 4 years ago. And so last year was over 20,000, and the year before was over 20, but before that it was 10 to 11,000 contacts a year. So it's been a pretty amazing shift for us to see how many people are saying, I really want to be able to talk to someone about this issue.
So not so much the problem's getting worse, but people are more comfortable or see a benefit in stepping forward and saying, I need help, I know help is available.
And I do think that there are more community partners also referring to us. I mean, this last week in our office, I had 2 counselors call in one day.
And what kind of
I'm working with someone,
uh-huh.
like mental health counseling,
Okay.
saying I'm working with someone and I really think that they could benefit from your services. And so we're seeing that. And then we now have co-located advocates in DHS offices. So we have more referrals coming from DHS than ever before. And a lot of those were working in just a better way, and I think more folks are aware. And part of that is the new location and the name change and the awareness that's come through that. People say, oh yeah, I could encourage my friend to talk to them. I can make a referral as a community partner. And so a lot of that is that awareness.
What brought about the name change?
Well, what we realized, and probably we started that process a couple of years ago, saying, is it time to look at that? And there were several reasons for that. One is we wanted to make sure that we were really inclusive. We don't just serve women in our community. We do serve men who are being abused. We also serve men who have friends and loved ones who are being abused. And sometimes that became a barrier. Also, Mid-Valley, there's a lot of Mid-Valley organizations, and it was confusing. And then crisis. We actually had folks who were confused about thinking that we were a mental health related agency. And so we would have calls coming to our program that weren't necessarily what we're experts in. And we'd always get them help get them connected with the experts in that, but we were hoping that the name change would help with that. The last part of it is we wanted to focus on the positive, because actually our program has some really positive things that come out of it. And you know, Mid-Valley Women's Crisis, you're kind of focusing on the negative piece of it. So, and people have responded to the name change so much. It's been overwhelmingly positive, and folks loving the way that makes it clear as to that we're really about providing that hope and safety for individuals in our community.
So share where the new location is and walk-ins. It sounds like you're getting more walk-ins. And
yes. So we're at 605 Center Street Northeast. We're on the corner of Church and Center downtown. So we're a block and a half from the transit station, which is so amazing for us. 3 blocks from the courthouse. We do a lot of advocacy around protection orders, and so being that close to the courthouse makes that so nice for us. And folks they can walk in Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We close for the lunch hour, but there's always an advocate there. So even if someone says that's the only time I can meet with someone, they can call and make an appointment with us, or they can just walk in, and we're going to always have somebody there available. So our crisis line is 24 hours in English and Spanish, but walk-in services 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, and just coming into the advocacy office. And we are able to provide some new and exciting services in that location.
good. So on the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, or a holiday, because you probably follow typical working hours. We just had a national holiday.
We did.
And,
yeah, so we always have the hotline is always covered in English and Spanish. And so 24 hours a day they can call and talk with someone. They can access shelter if that's what they're in need of. And so we're never without someone there to talk with someone. But as far as just walking in and getting services, we do the Monday through Friday, and then holidays we're closed, because our staff works really hard and we want them to take a break every now and then.
So you have a larger facility.
We do.
And what have you added, or how has it changed to?
It's been pretty amazing. We were in, for those who don't know, we were in a 100-year-old house, and we loved that old house, and it was really hard to move. But one of the things that started happening with more people coming to us, we would have times where we would have 3 or 4 individuals waiting to talk to someone, and we didn't have a confidential space to meet with them. And that's not okay in this, with this subject matter. You really have to have that confidentiality. That's so important. And then the other thing that happened is we were actually having to limit women coming to support group. We couldn't have more than 12 children in our support group, in our child care room.
The number of people that the fire code would allow you to have in your system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was heartbreaking to actually have women reach out, say, I want to get help, and then we'd say, I'm sorry, our child care facility was, not big enough. And so that's what really spurred us to look for a larger space. And now we're actually able to have 3 support groups all at the same time with free child care for all of them.
That's amazing.
10 and under. And and so it's been incredible to have 20 plus children in childcare and still have plenty of room for more. And that's been a really exciting piece. We have confidential meeting spaces identified. Also, the staff is able to take folks in their offices, so we will never run out of confidential meeting space. We have a space for trainings, and we're always training volunteers so that we can have more folks to help us with what we do. We have a computer workstations now.
Oh, wow.
So, so survivors, and practically every day we have folks in on the computers, and they're looking for housing, they're looking for employment. It's been an amazing. We have a teen space now.
Oh, good.
So teens come in and meet with our youth services coordinator and get that one-on-one, and we're hoping at some point in the near future to actually add a teen support group. And so we have the ability to do that. And, none of that would have been possible until we're in this new space. So we're loving it. We're really busy, but we're loving having the space.
Walk the viewers through. So if I call you, I'm in a bad situation, and someone has suggested I can call you. So I call you. What happens? Walk through
Absolutely.
a call and what's going to happen.
Great.
What
one of the first things that happens is, when we talk with someone, we're saying how much we appreciate that they've called, because that's a big first step. I mean, you imagine calling someone on a crisis line. You don't know them, and so trying to help them feel welcome and that we're really glad that they called. The next step is really finding out from them what they're calling about, because we have folks that call us about all different kinds of things. And so we're going to ask them, tell us a little bit about what's going on right now. And so they get to decide how much they tell us and what it is. And then we're really assessing with them. Are we safety planning, which we do 24 hours a day?
That's probably most of the calls.
It is. It's
how to get someone in a safe situation.
Absolutely. It's one of the biggest pieces that we do is, what are you hoping for? What would you like to have happen? What are you needing? If they're wanting to get a protection order, then we can walk them through that process, how that happens, how they can get one, how we can help with that. It may be as simple as getting a 911 cell phone. We have community members who donate their used cell phones to us, and we give out hundreds of those every year.
Is that a need right now?
It is. It's always a need to get those cell phones out into the community members' hands so they can feel a little bit safer, maybe in their home or as they're trying to transition somewhere else. We're talking to them about our shelter, which operates 24 hours a day and is confidential, so they can have that safety of shelter. Talking to them about support groups. We have 5 of those. We have them in Salem and one in Woodburn also in Spanish, and 2 others in Spanish and 2 in English. And then we're talking to them about, what's available for their children, what's available in our office. And so it really is very much focused on what they're wanting to talk about and what they identify as their needs. And sometimes that's getting them referrals out to other community resources. We try really hard not to duplicate other services, and so it could be that someone else in our community does a really good job with something, and so we're going to connect them with those resources.
Is there a need, as you're talking to individuals, is there a need that comes up that you're not able to meet? Is there, again, on a wish list, is there anything
right
want to share?
Right now we've had 2 family shelters close that were specifically for homeless families or homeless women or homeless men, and that has been a huge gap in services. So we get calls from individuals who are not victims of domestic violence or sexual assault or human trafficking, and they are just desperate to try to find a shelter that they can stay in. And they're very different issues, homelessness and dealing with violence. They don't need a confidential shelter. They don't, they don't have the same needs, and so it's working very differently. So that has been a huge need in our community that we're hoping that someone comes along and fills. Yeah, but we work really closely with all the shelter programs. We try really hard to not have our folks have to go on to another emergency shelter if they are survivors. Sometimes folks come in and their primary issue is not domestic or sexual violence, and so then we get them connected with the appropriate folks. But we try really hard for survivors not to have to go from one shelter to another. So we've actually built some partnerships to try to help deal with that.
So let's back up for just a minute, the issue of human trafficking. Can you talk a little bit about that and explain what's really going on there? I think the more I talk to people about it, they have no idea. They think it happens somewhere else. And so give us a little background on that. It's kind of a new issue in a sense.
It's kind of
an old issue, but it's new as far as awareness.
But yeah, very much due to awareness, because it has been around forever. We have been helping victims of human trafficking since the beginning of operations, since we opened a shelter in 1978. But the awareness is so much greater now, and we're actually able to help people in a different way.
Good.
And how it happens in Marion County primarily is through motels. We don't have, you hear about Portland where folks are walking along the street, so, soliciting prostitution, and that's not how you see it primarily in our area. It's mostly through the motels, and we've had some good success with partnering with the police department. They call us. The youth correctional facilities call us when they have a victim of human trafficking. We work with the homeless outreach programs here, and so they will connect youth with us that are being trafficked. And then we've also, through the police department, they worked with the motel owners, and they actually put clings on the mirrors of the motel rooms that say, "Are you being hurt?" And it has our phone number on it. And we've been
that's been helpful.
We've been contacted by human trafficking victims, because what happens is a pimp will buy a block of motel rooms, put the young women in there, and then just have Johns coming through one after the other. And so they don't know, sometimes they don't even know what town they're in, because they've just been moved through one after another. And in Oregon, we're in the top 5 for trafficking, just having that sort of thing happen, and then they'll move on to another community kind of along the I-5 corridor.
And so being in the top 5, largely because of the I-5 corridor and where we are geographically located.
Yes.
Here on the West Coast.
So they can be networked up and down the I-5 corridor. They can go over to Nevada. They can, they will keep them moving around so that they don't know where they're at and they don't have the connections. And so it's been a wonderful partnership with the motels to put that on all the mirrors, so that if a young woman is in there, they can reach out to us and get some help and support.
If they have the opportunity to.
Exactly. Or they may be able to write it down and contact us later. It has our 800 number on there too, so they can, no matter where they are, they can contact us, and we're going to be talking to them. And we've had individuals who've come into our shelter. It's actually very different working with a victim of human trafficking. Very often they come in pretty young, and they don't gather a lot of skills about, so it's kind of stepping, how we put it is walking alongside them and actually kind of helping them rebuild some skills on how do you make it out on your own.
So they're quite young. How young are these
unfortunately,
girls?
the national average is about 12 years old. And
now that's an average.
Yeah.
That means there are younger as well as older.
There are.
Oh my.
Yeah. And so, and we've talked to youth that are younger that are dealing with that, and it's incredibly sad. It's pimps get quite savvy at connecting around schools. They hang out around schools. They see the youth that are vulnerable as far as that they, they're running away, and it is very common for them to be approached very soon after running away.
So these individuals preying on young girls are hanging out like in the school parking lot, or is that the case? I mean, how?
They're either hanging out there, they're hanging out in places where youth hang out, or we've actually had some that will sign up for school as though they're young enough to do that, and then meet them through the schools and look for the ones that are most vulnerable. I don't get along with my parents, they don't understand me, and so we'll actually approach them. They also come under the guise of, I'm your boyfriend. I care about you, it's really horrible that you don't have a good family life.
I'll take care of you.
I will take care of you, and then once she thinks she's in a relationship, then he will say, if you really love me,
you'll do this for me?
Yes.
Yeah, meaning other
men.
Yeah.
And then it's dehumanizing. It's they feel as though no one could ever love them, and so that becomes a part of that. So a lot of things in common with a victim of domestic violence, that tearing down of self-esteem, to have that
the
person
control,
believe.
that
Absolutely.
control.
Yeah.
What about with human trafficking, the issue of drugs or other substance abuse? And
very common to get them hooked on drugs, and they are then the provider of those drugs, and the withholder of them if they, all those different kinds of things. So it's not uncommon for drugs to be a part of that, and certainly, it is helps, as far as they're concerned, that helps that victim stay connected with them long term. And so that's all those issues. But that can be common of victims of domestic violence, where the perpetrator will also get them involved in drugs or alcohol, and then will very often say, I'll have your children taken away if you come forward and tell anyone about this. And so that becomes very difficult for victims, because they don't want the abuse around their children, but they also are being threatened with losing their children, and it becomes this catch-22 that they can't get out of.
So that's a similarity between domestic violence and the human trafficking.
Yeah, if there's children involved, very much those become used as a tool to try to control that individual.
So what are you able to do to help these young women get out of human trafficking? What's the path?
Yeah, we have supportive services. So, and especially our youth services coordinator, Kirsten Heidel, works with a lot of victims of human trafficking. And we actually go into the youth correctional facilities, the boys and the girls, and talk with them about it. So one of the things that we found is that youth actually they're hesitant to go to an adult, but they will talk to other youth. And so we are going in and talking in those facilities and talking in the schools is to help youth be able to give them appropriate information, supportive information, and to help them get connected with services. And so whatever way they come to us, we're getting them connected with support and staff who have expertise around the issues. And then we're also walking alongside of them and helping them get support if they come into our shelter. We're helping them get to other communities if our community is not safe. And a big piece of it is education. They've been told a lot of lies about this is your fault, or no one will ever care about you. And one of the big pieces is giving them education around, they were actually targeted. They have been set up in a lot of ways for this, and how can we help you?
These particularly very young girls who end up involved in human trafficking, is there a disconnect? Or they have their family? They've run away from home, or how? Is there a connection at all with any family? What happens?
Well, if they haven't had a good connection, and just as true with domestic and sexual violence, very often perpetrators of human trafficking will look for someone who's been abused. So she may say, my parents abused me in some way, and they're gonna think, oh, this person's vulnerable because is she likely to tell? Is she likely to blame herself for it? All those things we found to be true of both domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. And so you could have a young victim who doesn't have a great connection with her family, and that perpetrator is going to prey on that and try to really play that up. Yeah, they don't understand you. They don't care about you. And so one of the things is we have victims who will say, I want to get back connected with my family, and we help them to be able to do that. We have others who say, no, that's not a safe place for me to be. And so then we help them rebuild kind of their own family to start over. And there's lots of great programs out there that are doing some really good work around this.
So what work is being done to keep girls away from human trafficking in the first place? Because once they're in it, there are many aspects of that situation that need to be addressed. What do we do to keep them away from it?
Well, I think one of the things we're doing is that awareness. So that's really helpful that we're talking about this. I mean, think about, even 10 years ago, we didn't really talk about it. And so we're talking about it, and we're talking about it in different places. There's more awareness, so schools are actually letting us come in. Kirsten talks to thousands of youth every year, and many of them let her come in and talk about teen dating violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, and even pornography, which is amazing to have the ability to reach out to them and talk about things that potentially they're going to be approached by, or they're going to be exposed to, and how can we help you understand it and then make decisions, make informed decisions about it.
Are the girls when Kirsten, when she's out talking to the girls, are these girls she's talking to, are they surprised to learn about the issue, or do they already know that there's something out there that they need to know more about?
I think some of them know, but I also think there's, just like with even domestic violence, we think, oh, that's someone else. That's not me.
It's another family, not our family.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have youth that think that could never happen to them. And then they're approached by someone who says, hey, come along with me. I'll, give you money. I'll do all these things. And so sometimes they're surprised at actually that they've been approached. And I do want to make it clear, it's not just young women. Young boys are being approached in trafficking also, and we work with them also. And so it's really, unfortunately, there are a lot of youth that need to understand about these dynamics. And so that information in schools, that public awareness, talking about it on programs like yours becomes so critically important, so that parents are informed and kind of know what's going on, and then also teachers, people that are going to be in their lives, and then knowing what resources can help them. And the state of Oregon has been doing some really good things around trafficking. There's actually just a new facility that opened up to help young girls to be able to go in and get some services, some wraparound services kind of thing.
So what's the best defense, though, what would be the message, a very quick one, we're going to run out of time in a moment, to get the young people or the older people who get involved? What's the best defense?
Education in any form. So, contacting us to get information, reading different things about it, being aware that it isn't just some other family or somewhere out there. Chances are students know of someone. Like if the youth, they'll know of someone that's being impacted by this.
All right. Well, we've run out of time, but very quickly as we close, people can get in touch with you. How? Very fast.
They can call our number at 503-399-7722. That's a 24-hour crisis line. And they can get on our website at www.hopeandsafety.org.
Okay. Thank you, Jayne, so much for joining me today to talk about this difficult issue. Thanks.
Thank you.